Michael, thanks for being on the show.
Great to be with you, Jay.
So I'm really excited to have you because you have a lot of insights that I think are really going to help people on their entrepreneurial journey. You talk a lot about consulting and successful strategies to grow. And what I'd love to hear a little bit about, just as we kick off, is what kind of put you in that field that you're in now? You've been doing this for quite a while. You've helped a lot of other people grow their businesses and consulting practices successfully. What kind of put you in the place that you're in right now?
Yeah, so I've been building consulting business now for 19 years. The last 10 years been working with consultants, directly helping them to grow their businesses. And I really got into consulting by building my first business with my cousin and business partner, Sam, who to this day remains my business partner and my cousin. We started a web design and development company way back in the day. And he was really focused more on the design and kind of development side. My background was just more geared towards the communications and client facing and marketing. And that just kind of was like the entry point to the consulting world. I don't have any formal quote unquote training. I didn't work at a big consulting firm. I just studied a lot. I read a lot of books. I consumed as much information as I could. And what I started to find out as I was kind of, building this initial business was that I knew a lot more about marketing and about strategy than a lot of the business owners that I was speaking with. I was not, the top person in the world, but I had an edge over a lot of people that I was speaking with. And so that just taught me that, okay, maybe I can help people here. Maybe I can contribute some value and some ideas. And so then as we got into our next business, which was a branding and design consultancy, we started to apply more of what we had learned. And so we've now built up and sold 5 or 6 different companies over the years, and one just kind of led to the next. But in terms of getting to where I am today, really working with consultants, that happened as I was running one of our consulting businesses, and Sam and I were talking about how can we do something online together. We both love to travel, and we wanted to be able to kind of run a business from anywhere. And so we thought, well, let's just start putting ideas of our experiences, like what's it really like being in the trenches of building a consulting business online. And so there was no monetization plan, Jay. It was just, let's put up articles and content and see what happens with it. And the response was pretty dramatic. We had a lot of people reaching out, a lot of people saying, hey, this is really great. I appreciate you sharing, the wins and the losses. Do you have something that can take us into more detail? And that then kind of spawned the courses on building a consulting business and the coaching program, kind of everything else that we're now known for today really just got started by this idea of let's share what we're actually doing in real life.
That's great. So the content-driven aspect is something I'm really interested in because I think a lot of people struggle with this. I will hear people from time to time when we talk about these ideas of just putting content ideas out there and helping people. They think first, one, how do I make money off of it? That's the first thing people ask. And the second, well, I don't want to give away all of my good ideas. Like I hear a lot of those kind of things from time to time. And there's plenty of folks who have kind of countered that argument, and you certainly have as well. So what would you say to those people who are like, well, I don't want to give away all my good ideas by putting all this content out there?
Yeah, I think what I've observed over the years of building businesses and having plenty of learning experiences, aka failures, but also some wins here and there, is that the person that struggles tends to have a scarcity mindset, and those who succeed tend to have an abundance mindset. The concern of if I give all this away, then why will someone even need me, is a scarcity mindset. Look at the most successful. Just look at the results. If you go to Amazon or a bookstore, and you'll see that the biggest names in any given industry, right, typically have books, or a lot of their knowledge is out there. Like think about a book itself, right? It's packed with that person's knowledge. They're giving you hundreds of pages of deep, detailed information, yet they're still in demand. And the reality is because someone who takes your information and just kind of runs off with it and tries to do it all themselves, they would never be a buyer of yours at that moment anyways. They're not ready to make an investment. But the person who picks up your book or goes through your course or whatever it is, and then goes, yeah, this is really interesting, but I don't have time to apply all this myself. Maybe I can, learn from this person, or look how much free information this person has put out there. Imagine what it would be like to actually work with them. That's the actual true buyer. And so that's why I would say, the abundance mindset is really what helps people to create greater results. Don't worry about what a small percentage of people might do with your information that you give away for free. Recognize that the greatest people in really any industry are not concerned about that. They're putting out as much as they can, as much value as they can, and that then brings, attracts a lot more people to them.
Yeah, I think that's great. A lot of people I see stuck in that scarcity mindset, and but interestingly, pretty much everybody I know who has been wildly successful, at least by their own definition of what they wanted
Sure.
success to be,
Which can
is
vary. Yeah.
absolutely, which
Yeah.
is based on that idea that there's plenty of fish in the sea. I mean, I always tell people some of my best ideas, knowledge, resource, and growth have come from being at events where there are other business owners like me who run the same kind of business I do. And
Yeah.
we all just sit around a table, and there's great speakers there and all that kind of stuff. But the most valuable times are when you're sitting around a lunch table or a dinner table or in between breaks with coffee, and you're sharing ideas. And all those people are doing that because they have that mindset. They have the mindset of,
Right.
look, there's plenty of work out there. There's too much work out there. We can't do everything. We need other people to do these things. And if along the way I can help somebody else, I think that's going to kind of come back to me. And I love that idea. You talked about failures and you used the word learning experiences along the way. I always love to hear some real life difficulties that you've encountered, because I think when people are running a business initially, it's easy for them to feel like I'm the only one that is experiencing these struggles, even if they know that's not true. And I think it's helpful to hear real stories from other people that have been through some difficult stuff and then figured out a way to work through them. Do you have an example of maybe something that you've had to go through that kind of resonates in that area?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of examples, and I just want to point out in full transparency that the failures, or I don't call them failures. I like to call them learning experiences, because I don't think it's a negative thing. It's part of improving, and the what really matters is, are you learning from that experience and then using that to increase your strengths. But I continue to have them to this day. Like, doesn't matter what level you're at and how successful you are, you will always continue to have challenges and things that might knock you down. But what's going to separate you from success and struggle is, are you going to get back up? And the type of challenges that you have will differ depending on how big your company is and the complexity and all that, but you're still going to have challenges. The moment that you stop having challenges is the moment that you're essentially dead, or you just have given up. So first, recognize that as normal. Recognize that as an entrepreneur, being worried and being anxious and being concerned is also normal. I think Ray Dalio, said, he's become a lot more kind of popular and mainstream recently, but he talks about this idea that it's actually healthy to worry, because if you worry, you can plan. If you're not worried about anything, it's actually dangerous, because it means you're not preparing for anything. So having worry is a good thing. Now, back to your specific question around maybe some failures or experiences that I can share around that. And one that I go back to that continues to teach me lessons as I share it with our clients and those that we work with in our coaching program, is one of the early kind of ventures that Sam and I had. We were building, at that time, we had this idea for a community of professionals. It was kind of like LinkedIn, but it was around the same time as LinkedIn, but we wanted to do something a little bit different, and it was more for kind of media and marketing people. And so, long story short, we invested over $20,000 in a lot of development time with developers, a company that we worked with, to develop this awesome, in our minds, product. We really kind of painstakingly went through making sure that we had all the best features. We wanted, we kind of wanted to squeeze all the juice out that we could from this investment. The only problem, Jay, is that we didn't ask the marketplace if that's what they actually wanted. And so when we went to kind of launch this thing, we recognized and actually heard from the community that we had built up kind of as beta testers, that they only wanted 5% of what we had built. And so that was a lesson that continues to kind of ring in my mind, in my ears, that it's so important to validate. I think it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in, whether you're selling a product or you're selling a service, whether you're a consultant or you are inventing some new food product. You need to take the hypothesis that you have and validate it. And you can't do that just sitting behind a computer planning, you're like working on your business plan or updating your website or thinking about all the ways that you're going to dominate the world. You need to get out there, not necessarily physically, it could be virtually, but you need to get out there and you need to talk to the people that are your ultimate buyers and hear from them firsthand what it is that they want. And that's how you can then validate your idea. So we didn't do that. We learned from it. We were luckily able to change that kind of business model around and reposition it and cut a lot of things down and turn that company very profitable. And later it was acquired. But that was a really interesting experience, because it just continues to kind of guide how we approach marketing and business development.
That's really good. And I think that the validation thing is really important, because I hear a lot of people sometimes say things like, well, a lot of people have told me that they would buy this, and they confuse that sometimes with validation. There's some validation there.
Yeah.
I always say there's a lot more validation when somebody actually writes you a check, when somebody
Sure.
actually pays you for something. And even if it's small, I think kind of to your point, sometimes you build the bigger thing by mistake and you should have just built the small thing first, see if somebody will buy a piece of it. And if they will, that's
Yeah.
the best kind of validation when people are willing to put their money behind it.
Yeah, I mean, we could have probably started with what we actually needed at that time with a $1,000 investment, not a $20,000 investment. So we way over invested, but looking back, that's just the nature of it. It would have been a lot worse if we didn't even take action on the idea because we were trying to wait for things to be just perfect. And I think that's another big mistake that a lot of people make in business is that they're waiting too long. They're deliberating and kind of analyzing decisions or lack of decision. They're not actually making a decision because they're just trying to think through it so much. And that's another key trait that I've kind of recognized and observed, Jay, of successful entrepreneurs is that they are the ones that don't wait for all the answers. They're not just throwing stuff out there and hoping that it sticks, but they are taking some risk on. They're making some assumptions, and then they're spending a lot more time kind of course correcting or adjusting to the decisions that they've made. But the main thing that gives them the edge over the others is that they've actually gotten out of the gate by taking action.
I think that's really good. One thing that I'm thinking about right now, as we're talking about consulting and consultancies and all this kind of stuff, is there might be some people listening who might say, I'm not even quite sure what a consultancy is. I'm not sure what a consultant is compared to some other kind of business. So I know I'm kind of watering it down, but two things. One, I'd love to hear you talk about what is a consultant, first of all, really basic. And number two, you talk about these 6 principles of running a very successful virtual consultancy. I'd love you to kind of transition into that. So number one, what is a consultant? Number two, what are those 6 principles that you like to talk about?
Yeah, sure. So I think at the core, a consultant is a person or a company that provides value to to another person or an organization that helps someone to solve a problem that they have. Most often, not by going in there and doing the actual work to fix it, but more providing strategic advice and recommendations and guidance, showing them what they need to do and guiding them and supporting through that. That's really what I view as a consultant as being. And then in terms of the 6 principles, I'll try and kind of go over as many as we can here time-wise. But yeah, this was a post and kind of a video that I put out about kind of how we run a 7-figure consulting business while traveling the world. And the first principle there that I think is really important is about subtraction over addition. A lot of people in business I see thinking, they're in this kind of false belief that you need to add more things, more services, more products, more this, that, and the other in order to grow. But if you actually study the most successful businesses when they first launch, they achieve kind of real acceleration and traction by having less, by being minimal. And so, we've seen in our business and also with many clients that you're able to achieve, even 7 figures, very profitable, very lean, rather quickly with just like 2, maybe 3 different products or services. You don't need to have 10. You don't need to have a website that says that you can do everything under the sun. You just need to be focused. So the first thing that I would really recommend to people if they want to be very focused on lifestyle, and I'm not talking if you want to build a big company or with many employees, your focus might be different. But if lifestyle is really important to you and you want to be able to travel while you're building a business and kind of run a virtual team, then think about what complexity can you remove, what can you subtract rather than what you can add. The next part of it really is about having the right team in place. And when I say team, sometimes people go like, "Oh, I don't really want a team. That's kind of why I got out of the corporate world." But these don't need to be full-time people. They can be contractors. They can be part-time. They can even be different resources or services or tools that you use, with people that you've never met. But look at what are all the low-value tasks that you're currently involved in on the day-to-day, and how can you delegate those? How can you get them off to someone else so that you don't need to do all of that work yourself? So you can therefore be focused on high-value tasks, and that allows you then to prioritize. That allows you then to get back your life and spend it, doing things that you enjoy, like being with your family and loved ones or traveling or whatever it might be. Another one is coming into systems and processes. And so for us, we always look at anything that we need to do more than once. How do we build a system or a process around that to ensure that that we don't need to do it ourselves? So it's very connected to team in terms of delegation. But as an example, we run a podcast called the Consulting Success Podcast, and we started actually many years ago, paused it because it wasn't the priority at that time. But then we decided more recently, let's bring it back. And so one of my conditions in doing that is that I just wanted to show up and interview the guests. I didn't want to touch anything else. And so between the team and different services that we use, essentially we built in this system and process. So the only thing that I need to do is show up like you and I are doing right now, have the conversation, and everything else is pretty much taken care of as part of that. So that can happen in many different aspects of your business, whether it's your marketing, whether it's your onboarding of new clients, or whether it's some other accounting or administrative component. Another one that I talk about is prioritizing, or kind of prioritization, as being really critical. We all have, right, 24 hours in a day, yet some people accomplish a lot more than others. And why is that? Well, it comes down to, are you starting your day going through email and kind of, running through the weeds, or are you starting your day being very focused on the things that are going to actually move the business forward and help you to achieve what you want? And so I see a lot of people spending a lot of time doing busy work, but it's not necessarily the most effective work. And I've kind of termed this as the build syndrome, right? People like to build. It's fun and easy to build your website, or to play with your website, or to adjust the colors of your logo, or do your business plan, or play on social media. But those aren't necessarily the things that are going to actually move your business forward. So oftentimes the things that are going to move your business forward are the ones that you feel uncomfortable around. It's like, you got to pick up the phone, you have to go meet someone, you have to send that email. You need to do things that you may not necessarily be the most comfortable with, but if those are the ones that are going to actually help you to move the business forward, then that's what you should prioritize around. Get those done first. And if you just do that, even one or two things each day like that, you're going to make a lot more progress than if you tried to do a whole bunch of other busy work. So I don't know, is that 4 or 5 are we at right now in terms of principles?
That's really good. Yep. So
okay.
The other thing they can find in the video, right? You've got them online?
Correct. Yes.
So I think that all those are really interesting, but the subtraction over addition is really interesting to me, because this is something we're working with in our own agency right now, is looking at everything that we do.
Yeah.
Hey, do we need to do all of these things? We need to do them in the same way that we do them now. Is there something we can take away?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times that's around something that is maybe not as profitable as other areas,
Right.
but it also could just be things that we really like to do, or really good at, or things that I really want to be involved with. And that's kind of been my focus too, is I love that idea that you talked about with regards to prioritizing and creating systems too, because I think, for me, when I first launched this podcast, for example, I was doing all the things, and I was like, I can't do this every week. I can't.
Well, it's a full-time job, right?
There's a lot of pieces involved. The podcast done and produced well, and then edited and posted and all that stuff. But now I literally will show up for an interview and have a conversation, and then that's it. My team takes care of the rest. So I love those ideas. And I think people out there listening really need to do a self-evaluation. Take a day and sit down and write down all those things that are eating up all your time, and start looking at some of these principles and go, what could I take away? What could I prioritize differently? What could I, put a system or a process around? And when you do that, it's going to give you a life that you actually want to live versus.
Well, Jay, sorry to jump in there, but I think what you're hitting on right now is so important for people, because, many of us, I'd say probably most business owners don't do what you just said, which is take the time. Right? Take actual time. And this even is like rampant at higher levels and with very successful entrepreneurs. Like, we're so busy building the business that we don't actually take the time to think. Yet, again, if you study the most successful people, they will tell you that they create time to think, because that's when things happen. That's when breakthroughs are achieved. It's very hard to create a breakthrough or to see something in a strategic way, or to gain a kind of innovative insight when you're just doing your daily work. But when you book the week off, or even I was going to say like a half day off or a day off, and you go somewhere, go to the nature, book a hotel, like even in your own city, but just go to a coffee shop, right? Just change your environment. All of a sudden you start hitting into these new ideas that you never would have seen if you were just in your office. I think that's why, people often talk about having great ideas when they're in the shower. It's like your mind is not thinking about the business specifically when those ideas pop in. So changing the environment, like I'm in our office right now, but I'd say my best thing, it doesn't necessarily happen in the office. It happens when I'm walking from the office back to my house, or it happens when I'm on the airplane, or it happens when, I'm reading a book maybe, or just different times, going for a walk in the nature, or very common for me at the gym in the morning, or my mind is not even awake enough necessarily to be thinking about business, but I'm on the treadmill or I'm doing some weights or whatever. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I need to write that down. And I think that's a big opportunity for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that one thing that you said there about changing your environment is really key, because it's so easy to, you hear about people just kind of sitting in their office or just trying to get to the next idea, and they're not putting themselves in the place where that's even possible. But I think, and I love technology. I'm a big technology guy, especially when it comes to automation and stuff. But when you think about that particular topic, especially now we have our phones in our pockets all the time, and that thing is ready to vibrate at any moment with somebody on demand requesting our time or attention. And I mean, the science is all out there behind, once you lose focus on the task that you're at hand, it's hard, it takes a long time to get back to it.
Yes.
And I think business owners, especially, if we don't intentionally pull ourselves out of the whirlwind, you're just going to always live in it. Like there's always something that has to be done. And also, I think, especially for somebody like me, it feels good to check the task list off. It feels good to like do those task-based things. But as an entrepreneur, our real value, our greatest value, I should say, is in that visionary work that can only happen sometimes when we're disconnected and in a different location. So I think that's really, really helpful. Gosh, we've hit on so much stuff already. One thing I want to circle back to is at the beginning you talked about how you have built and sold 5 different businesses.
Yeah, so just to be clear, I haven't sold I've sold 2 of those businesses, okay. But yeah.
Good. Thanks for clarifying. But still, you sold a couple of businesses, right? And a lot of people kind of wonder what that looks like, how that comes about. I'd love to just hear a little bit about that. Once you get to a point where you go, hey, maybe this is an asset that could be sold. How did you come to those decisions? How did that kind of come about?
Sure. So with one of them, it was actually the company that I talked to you about, where we made this big investment, tried to build this community. Turned out the people didn't really want a community. What we found out that they really wanted was a platform to be able to find really great jobs or contracts, and have great companies, be able to essentially tap into them. So what we ended up kind of building was essentially a job board that was focused on marketing and design jobs specifically in Canada. And we got that up to a point where, it was one of the leaders in that space. And so for us, it was growing a profitable company, something that we really, we enjoyed doing. But at the same time, we were also running our consulting business. And what we just found is that our passion, and also just where we saw greater potential, like we were already spending a lot more time on the consulting business. And so this job board was kind of getting, it wasn't getting what it deserved. Like I always felt it was like this child that had so much potential, but we were just being really bad parents because we weren't giving it its all. And so, we tried a few different things in terms of putting some different kind of people and roles and all that kind of stuff in place. But ultimately what we got to was back to this idea. It's this child. It has so much potential. We need to give it a better home. And it just so happened that someone that I knew someone else who was buying and now running a whole bunch of different job boards. They're kind of putting together a big portfolio of them. And so we had a conversation, and it was actually pretty straightforward in terms of, if we can figure a way to make this work for both parties, then let's do it. And so it was a very, I'd say, a relatively easy and stress-free transaction. Not crazy like you might hear, out there. It was really about finding a good partner, someone who could take it over and do it in a way that made sense for us financially, but also made sense for them and gave them long-term prospects. So that was a really good experience. Taught us a lot about building a company and what it's like to sell a company. But it was also a very natural transition in that we didn't want to just have something hanging around because it was making money for us. We wanted to be focused on where we saw greater potential, because even if I was only spending, an hour or 2 per week on that business, it wasn't actually an hour or 2, right? I'd be in bed thinking about it, or in the shower, or at the gym. And so that was just mental energy that I want to either divert back to my kids, or divert, back to the main business, or just doing something else. And so it's all a matter of priorities, right? I think a lot of people spend just time thinking about building a business and making money, but they don't necessarily ask themselves the question of, well, why am I doing that? Like ultimately, what's the end goal that I want to achieve here? And I've been much more focused over the last several years on kind of quality of life and memories, and creating those types of experiences, because I think those are, at the end of the day, the most meaningful.
That's actually a great transition into what I always kind of like to wrap up the show with, and we'll wrap up with 2 things. One, we'll talk about work-life balance. And then 2, I want to kind of hear any parting thoughts on how you think people can build a business that lasts. So speaking to that, I want to a higher quality of life. That means something a little bit different to everybody. And I don't even really like the word work-life balance, but that's the most commonly used phrase.
Sure.
What does that even mean to you, first of all? And how have you over time, I mean, we've already heard some of these things, but how have you over time kind of worked towards that place where you've said, hey, this is the kind of life I want to live?
Yeah, so I think, going back, one of the things that I had written out many years ago when I was kind of first starting my entrepreneurial journey was I wanted to be in a position where, for me, freedom just means not having to think about money very much. To be able, if I want to go, on a trip, or I want to go eat at a restaurant, or what I enjoy doing is treating those that I love, taking them out for a meal or an experience, or whatever that might be. And so I wanted to get to that place. And so when I reached that place, it felt great, right? But like most people, you think, okay, well, what's the next, level and so forth that I can now build to? But for me, again, kind of coming back to what I value most, it's family. I have, I have 2 kids, and my wife and I, we enjoy traveling, and so, last year we spent about 5 months in different countries around the world, still while running the business. And I think we just got back from a trip to Australia, and then in LA next week, then in Mexico with the family as well. So that, like, the ability to travel and still work at the same time, because for me, I don't, like, yes, there's a clear separation between family and business, but I'm also the kind of person, like, I don't see a big deal of doing a little bit of work on Sunday morning if it just puts me in a better place for the rest of the day. Or if I needed to, wake up and do a little bit of work earlier on or later on, I might do that. I don't do that the same way that I would, or that I did when I was younger and when I was starting my business, because I do believe that there is value to, quote unquote, the hustle, or just working a little bit harder early on. And that's just because if you accelerate what you're doing, then you're able to try more things and you're able to learn faster what works and what doesn't work. And so I couldn't be in the position that I'm in when I just started the business. Therefore, I had to hustle and work a little bit harder earlier on. But after a while, you start to learn what doesn't work, which allows you to focus more on what does. And so the kind of the very intentional plan that I had set out, and again, I think the big thing here, maybe that just I can offer to people, is I had a plan. I had a clear vision on what I wanted, which was to be able to run a business while, living and traveling anywhere, and being able to spend a lot of time with family. And so I have my priorities straight, or at least I like to think that I do, and I try to kind of, stay to them. But I'm up early in the morning. I go to the gym. That's critical for me. I come back, I spend some time with the family. Then, I'm typically at the office between, let's say, 10 and 4-ish. And then I come back and I spend time with the family. And then, might, depending on the day, meet a friend or a cousin or whatever it is for, for a drink or some food or something like that. But I'm very focused on, again, the priorities, like those 6 principles that we talked about before. That's key, because all those subtractions and all those kind of prioritizations is what allows me to be very focused on what matters the most. So I'm not trying to work nonstop hours. I'm not trying to get everything done, because the realization that I had, Jay, is I'll never get everything done. There's no way possible. And as an entrepreneur, my mind is always going to think of new ideas and always think of new strategies and tactics and, things that we should be doing. But if I try to do them all, there's no way that would happen. And I'd always feel like I'm, kind of unsatisfactory. So it's all about getting very clear on what's important. And so for me, it's doing the right things with the business, helping our clients to get great results, and then making sure that I'm, creating memories with my family.
I love that. And I think one of the big things that I want to kind of reiterate about what you just said was about having an intentional plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, they think they have a plan, but they've never even taken the time to write that plan down. As much as, again, I love technology, there is some magic in like putting a pen to paper,
yes,
and physically writing down that future vision of yourself. And I also really appreciate that you kind of highlighted the idea that at times there's different seasons of life. And so when you're younger, you don't have as many responsibilities. Maybe you don't have kids yet. Maybe you're not married yet. Whatever the case may be, there is a season, especially if you want to build a foundation, where you got to put in a little bit of extra work just to get it jump started, I think. And that's been true for me as well. And then there does come a point in life where you go, hey, how can I now get to where I wrote down on that plan where I want to go? I think that's really important, because I think a lot of times people can listen to a conversation like this between you and I, who have been doing business for decades, and they're brand new in business. And they think, oh, well, I just need to have all this extra free time, and I need to do these traveling things. And it can feel almost overwhelming when they feel like, I just need to work right now to get that done. That's okay too. And it's just a matter of having your own plan and your own system to get there.
Yeah. So when I was in Sydney in Australia, I actually just recorded a video on this topic because I keep seeing people, kind of in opposition of each other. So there's people like Gary V, right, Vaynerchuk, who talks about like the hustle, and there's people who hate what he's doing and say, no, like that's terrible. You should never hustle and sacrifice family and all that. But I think the line that people are missing is that both sides are actually right. That there's a place for the hustle and there's a place for the balance and the high value and low value. But the early days, if you're trying to optimize, there's nothing to optimize. And so you got to put in some of that work. You got to hustle. You got to, there's a time, as you call it, the seasons. Mm-hmm. And if you're in Melbourne, they'll say there's actually 4 seasons in one day. I experienced that firsthand. But there's no right or wrong. I think that too often people are trying to use that from a marketing perspective to kind of win you over or to get your attention. But I think the reality is that both sides are right. It just depends on your specific situation.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about even somebody like Gary Vee is, and I've actually talked to him about this before, in that kind of hustle all the time. And his response will basically be, well, look, you do you. If you're happy with where you are, that's great. But for him, that's who he is and who he wants to be and where he is in life. And that's fine too. That's what he's decided. But I think, one of the things I always tell people is ignore the system, but have a system. Mm-hmm. So like, just because you say they should do something doesn't necessarily mean they should. Just because I say they should doesn't mean they should.
Yeah. But
they should take all that counsel in and go, hey, what works for where I'm at right now and where my plan is? Because your plan might be different than mine. My plan might be different, and that's okay. But have a plan. I think that's kind of the big takeaway from that. So we're running out of time here. If you were to give kind of parting thoughts to somebody who really wants to build a business that lasts and takes them to that intentional plan, what's kind of one kind of parting idea you might leave with our audience today?
Yeah. So, there's 2 words that I always share with our clients, especially in our coaching program, and it's imperfect action. Maybe people have heard this idea before, but I do see so many people who are essentially kind of shackling themselves or delaying the progress that they could achieve by overthinking and not taking enough action, by doubting themselves before they've even left the gate. And if you want to, first of all, build a business, then just know there's some risk involved, but you actually lower your risk. This is the counterintuitive part, Jay, is you lower your risk by taking more action. Whereas some people think that you increase your risk by taking more action, right? Like if you don't have everything worked out, you're increasing your risk. That's more risky. Well, no, it's not, right? If you just go out, you'll learn what's correct and incorrect about the decision that you made. But if you're not actually even taking any action, you're not going to learn anything because you'll only have, ideas and thoughts floating around in your mind. So that would be the first thing that I would say, is just for people to really take imperfect action. And then as you do, filter what's working, more of what's working for you, less of what's not working for you. And I think you and I are aligned on the technology side. Like technology can be a great supporter and friend for you, but it can also delay a lot of your progress if you're spending so much of your time trying to learn the technology and instead of actually having real conversations with humans. That's an important thing. So I would put all those pieces together, and then I would say, make time to take care of yourself, of your body, of your mind, and just to think about what it is that you really want, because it's quite common for people to be so focused on, doing what they're doing that they end up in a place that they actually didn't want to get to. So if you look at your plan, if you kind of think about that on a daily or at least a weekly basis, you'll ensure that even if you've gone off track a little bit, you'll be able to get back on pretty quickly.
That's really good counsel. I really appreciate the time that you've taken today to share ideas with me. I know I've taken some things away that will be really valuable in my own life, so I appreciate that. I know our audience will too. If people want to learn more about you and kind of find out about all the work that you're doing and maybe hear some more of your ideas, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so at consultingsuccess.com, we do have actually a blueprint. So anyone that's interested in kind of getting more involved in consulting or wanting to build a consulting business, we have a free guide that goes into the best practices around building a consulting business. And you can get that by going to consultingsuccess.com/blueprint.
All right, consultingsuccess.com/blueprint. I'm going to go download that for myself and take a look at it. We'll put it in the show notes. Michael, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hey, Jay, real pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, I hope this video has helped you with some tips and ideas to build a business that lasts. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss out on the next videos that we roll out. And more importantly, for some awesome free resources, head over to our website at buildingabusinessthatlasts.com. You can get a free copy of my book there where I tell you how I have built an agency that's grown year over year for the last 20 years in a row. So go grab that, buildingabusinessthatlasts.com, and make sure to subscribe to our channel. Thanks. We'll see you soon.